How are women today unknowingly practicing tabarruj in this day and age? Is it possible to wear light makeup and still maintain pure intention while dressing modestly? Also, what is the ruling on threading eyebrows? Will I be cursed by the Prophet ﷺ, even if I feel deeply connected to Allah and always strive to maintain a strong relationship with Him? Okay, this is again a very sensitive question, and that's exactly why we're having these questions here. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَبَرَّجْنَا تَبَرُّجَ جَاهِلِيَةِ الْأُولَى. Do not brazenly display your beauty like the women of old would do so. How would the women of old do so? Imagine 17th century Europe, where women would have their hairs covered, but the upper chest and the bosom area would be uncovered. That is exactly how tabarruj happened in Jahiliyyah. They would actually have a headscarf, right? But they would intentionally cut their dress low so that the upper part and the cleavage would be showing exactly how it was in Europe. That was how it was in Jahili times. So Allah says, don't do that. Do not do tabarruj. Now, the issue then, what constitutes tabarruj? Tabarruj, no doubt, the Sharia has come with red lines. In everything, there's always red lines here, right? And no doubt, overall, a woman's body should be covered in loose clothing. There's no question about that. A man's body should also be covered in loose clothing, but the awrah is different. Allah created men and women differently, and men are far more visual, and the temptations that happen are different. Now, this is the problem here. Each gender cannot fully understand the opposite gender. Sisters, you can never understand how a man thinks. Brothers, you will never understand how a woman thinks. You can try to hear, but in the end of the day, you're born in different bodies. You're born in different physiological, psychological, emotional, hormonal differences. You can never fully understand the opposite gender fully. You can never do that. So each one of us is limited. We're always going to be looking at the world from our point of view. And women say, why can't men control their gaze? Why can't men do this and that? And I understand it's frustrating for them. Why do they have to judge me on my bodies? And men don't understand as well that women are not viewing the world with the same lens that men are, that the temptations that happen to men, that women are very different in this regard. And for them, emotional feelings are much more, if you like, triggered by treatment rather than by visual, right? It's a different paradigm. So Allah, knowing this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has dictated that women should dress more modestly, because automatically a man treats a woman differently, generally speaking. Of course, there are exceptions. And even a woman who's fully dressed and fully covered sometimes gets catcalled, sometimes gets harassed. But I'm speaking generally speaking, and this is every survey and study has shown, when a woman dresses provocatively, she brings out of men things that should not be brought out. It is better to be covered up. And when a woman dresses more modestly, generally speaking, the bar of provocation has been raised higher. So more men are going to treat her with dignity. Now again, there's no hard and fast rule. As I said, and a lot of sisters say this, even if a woman's fully dressed, she gets catcalled. I agree with you. We're talking about percentages. We're talking about the default. The more dignified and the more dressed a woman is, then generally speaking, the more men are going to treat her with respect. Now, there's no justification either way. Brothers, no matter how a woman dresses, you have to lower your gaze, right? Brothers, no matter how provocative a woman is in your office or whatever, you're not allowed to flirt with her. You're not allowed to stare at her. But sisters, it's a two-way street here. Taking precautions is a two-way street. Brothers need to take theirs. Sisters need to take theirs. Bottom line, tabarruj is forbidden. But the Sharia did not come with a specific definition of tabarruj. And there's obviously, it's not a black and white. There are many, areas that are ambiguous. Without a doubt, dressing provocatively, dressing showing skin, dressing in skin tight, without a doubt, you are on the tabarruj path. Also, without a doubt, the more modest you are avoiding tabarruj. There is a gray area in the middle. And of that gray area is going to be what the sister calls, just a touch-up makeup, right? This type of makeup, just a little bit of powder, a little bit of, and every sister knows when you're dressed up to go to some type of walima or dawat versus you dress up for the morning, you all have your different routines here. That level of a simple example. Okay, let's see a simple example. The earlier scholars, based on their understandings of hadith, many of them forbade perfume for women completely. absolute forbidding, right? Does that mean women should not wear deodorant? Think about it. We do not want that to happen. Guys, believe me, we don't want that to happen. Times have changed. And in the past, for a woman to wear certain types of perfume, and then walk through a crowd is very different than just a generic masking perfume and deodorant or whatnot. Very different in this regard. So, where is the line drawn? Honestly, there is no mathematical equation I can give to you. I'll be very honest. Sisters, if you are loosely covered with your clothing, and if you're able to do the headscarf, I do believe the headscarf is mandatory. At the same time, I don't fetishize the headscarf, right? Would be very clear here. This gets me into a lot of trouble, but I'm very firm and explicit. I do believe that a woman's body is awra in totality other than the face and the hands. That is clear, brothers, and nobody misquote me. These are very sensitive topics, right? The entirety of the body is awra other than the face and the hands. That having been said, I also believe that too many people have fetishized the headscarf more than what the Sharia has made it. It is obligatory, but in case a sister's not able to wear it, may Allah forgive her, she can still be good in other areas. She can still have a relationship with Allah. We don't need to guilt, trip a sister, especially the brothers. Her own brother, her own father, yes, but other brothers, it's not your business. Everybody's struggling. And brothers, you do not know how difficult it is to wear a headscarf in this environment. And Allah knows their struggles. I genuinely admire every one of you sisters who has dedicated her life to constantly being in the target of the far right, to constantly being in the gaze of other, non-Muslims who know you're a Muslim, a lady. You have my utmost respect. In case you're not able to do that, don't lose hope in Allah's mercy. Try. I'm not saying, please don't misunderstand me, brothers, because I know brothers are trigger happy to just immediately, kick you off or whatever it might be. No, I'm not saying it's good, but I'm also saying, is that the worst sin she can do? Do you see what I'm asking here, right? I want to be very careful in this regard. Frankly, the equivalent really, many of our brothers are struggling with lowering their gaze, constantly staring at women, constantly looking at things they shouldn't look at. You do understand that is of a similar sin, if not worse, than a sister not wearing a headscarf. You do understand, like, you're also committing sins. Don't judge when you're not walking in their shoes, and give them support rather than demonize them. It is possible in this environment and culture that the stress is so much for our sisters, a particular sister, she's struggling. She still might have a strong connection with her Lord. She's praying 5 times a day. She is fearing Allah in her piety. She is living a dignified life. And inshallah, the fact that she's not wearing a headscarf, it's not good. I'm not saying it's halal, but inshallah, it might be forgiven in light of the good that she's doing, right? Her entirety of her existence and her Islam is not based on her headscarf. This is what I'm saying here. And all too often, and again, this goes back to the fiqh and whatnot I'm talking about, right? That becomes the mark of piety. And I say to you bluntly, the purity of her heart is infinitely more important than the covering of her hair. Wallahi, the purity of her heart. She has no ill feeling toward other people. She's not backbiting. She loves Allah and His Messenger, is infinitely more important than somebody who has a headscarf, but she's backbiting, who has a headscarf, but she has jealousy in her heart, who has a headscarf, but is living an un-Islamic lifestyle because of things that she's doing. So brothers as well, again, don't misunderstand me, but we judge too much on these minutiae. Go back to what I mentioned about paradigm, about the calf and the golden calf and whatnot. Guys, headscarf is one issue of Islam. There's a gazillion other issues, right? And the headscarf came down in the 7th year of the Hijrah. How about the first 20 years of Islam? Where did they go? Let's concentrate on that stuff and build your way up, inshallah. When you're able to do that, good for you. So, tabarruj is going to be relative, sisters, right? In some societies. So I lived in Saudi Arabia way before all of these changes are happening, right? All these changes are happening now. So when I was there in the 80s and the 90s, when I was there, all ladies without exception wore full black head to toe. In that environment, I personally would say it is not befitting that a lady wears a pink hijab. I would say this literally. Why is she bringing attention to herself? When all of society is doing something, stick with it. Why are you bringing extra attention to yourself? A yellow hijab, an orange hijab. If everybody is dressed in a similar manner, why are you trying to bring attention to yourself? Be dignified, be decent, and live your lifestyle the way that everybody else is doing. Now, that same fatwa in the 90s in America, is a pink hijab, a yellow hijab, an orange hijab exotic? No. Wearing a hijab is dignified, correct? Wearing a hijab, no matter what color it is an act of decency. We don't care about the color. What did I just do here? I showed you fiqh is relative. I showed you the same time, the same place, different fatwas. The fatwa of Arabia is different than the fatwa of America, okay? The same goes for the garment, the style, the color. The same goes for the cut, right? That in the Western world, look at how the hijab is practiced in, and you look at Malaysia, look at Afghanistan, look at Nigeria, look at Arabia. Every society has developed its own style of hijab. Good for them. We here in America, are we required to take the Malaysian hijab or the Saudi Arabian hijab or the Afghani burqa? We have the right to look at our culture and to look at Allah's guidelines in the Sharia and to then derive a clothing and a garment that is dignified and is also conducive to the world that we live in. And so sisters who are working in corporate America, you have the right to have a dignified dress code that is in line with, the dress code of the corporation and also is covering the body. You don't have to wear an Afghani burqa when you go to the corporate. Literally, I'm being honest with you, right? And Allah will reward you for this, not a problem. So the question that you specifically asked is about light makeup. And in my humble opinion, wallahu ta'ala a'lam, the type of makeup that you just do for, covering up the blemishes and just looking dignified, this is not under tabarruj, wallahu a'lam, okay? And the type of makeup you do, as you're all aware, when you're going out to some walima, some da'wat, whatnot, right? That is not something that should be done in front of other men. That is something you do in front of sisters and in front of your husband or your future husband. And as for the issue of eyebrows and eyelashes, I have an entire hour lecture on Epic Q&A. Please listen to it. An hour long. By the way, in all seriousness, brothers and sisters, I have over 250 questions answered on Epic's Q&A, Ask YQ, okay? And almost all of them are done intentionally to explain to you the wasati paradigm. I have chosen those questions with a lot of thought. These aren't just random questions. I talk about the beard, I talk about the isbal, the lowering of the pants, I talk about the topi. I'm doing this on purpose because honestly, it is a problem, brothers, that you think Islam is based upon how low the pants go. You're going to measure the beard and that's going to be your iman, the topi. Yeah, well, this is what happens when you have ossified fiqh. This is what happens when you are in an environment which is semi-cultish. Everybody walks the same, talks the same, looks the same. You meet somebody outside of your cult and you will judge their Islam based upon the fact they don't look like your cult. And that's wrong. Islam is universal. If you want to be in your bubble, good for you. Good for you. Don't expect your bubble to be extrapolated to the world. That's my problem. I don't have any problem you being happy with your group of people. That's fine. Groupthink works for you, good for you. But don't judge other people if they don't have the same groupthink as you. Is that clear? Don't be arrogant because your arrogance is a bigger sin than them not following your version of fiqh. Understand this point here, right? And by the way, almost any question you have about fiqh issues in this regard, the most common questions, they've been answered in my 250. So I have an hour-long lecture about the eyebrows. This is wasati fiqh, guys. Brothers, listen to me carefully. I know you guys are obsessed with these small, many of you are as well. Don't you think it doesn't make sense that Allah's la'na would come over plucking the eyebrows? I mean, that's a big, big, big issue, right? I mean, Allah's la'na is like the biggest thing, like the murderer, Allah's la'na comes. The one who worships other than Allah, the la'na comes. Now you come across a hadith that says Allah's la'na is on the woman who cuts her eyebrows or who trims her eyebrows. Wasati fiqh says, guys, look at the context. Ibn al-Jawzi says this. This isn't a modernist interpretation. Go to the classical books, and if you're willing to explore beyond the madhabs, you're going to realize what it's not the only interpretation, One interpretation is that, I'm sorry to be blunt, you're all adults here, that was how prostitutes marked themselves as prostitutes back in the day. They had a particular style, a particular mechanism of, just like in our times, if you'd in Los Angeles, whatever, the way they're dressed and the specific types of mini skirts, this is that type of lady, right? There's markings in every society that this is one of those types of ladies. So the interpretation of a group of scholars, which makes a lot of sense, is that that style that the Prophet is cursing, he's not cursing the eyebrows. He's cursing the institution of prostitution, which is one of the worst institutions that destroys society. That's what he's cursing. That makes a lot of sense now. That's Allah's curse, is on that type of person. Now, as for a lady beautifying herself for her husband, right? Or even for the sake of finding a pious husband and looking for a husband, how can Allah's la'na come on something that is like, it's just hair and you're plucking it? Why would Allah's la'na come to look a little bit more dignified, to trim, to whatnot? It doesn't make sense. And therefore, if you ask me, and this is the fatwa, this isn't just a modern fangled fatwa, you will find it in classical Islam. And by the way, even in the madhabs, by the way, here's the irony. Guys, I don't know how explicit to be, it gets me into a lot of trouble. The rise of Salafism, and I speak as a Salafi, ex-Salafi, has generated a lot of positives and negatives. And one of the negatives, even the madhabists have reacted in a negative manner. And a lot of the madhabists don't even know their own madhab because of the rise of Salafism. Most madhabs actually allow a woman to pluck her eyebrows to please her husband. This is the fiqh. This is standard fiqh. I mean, why would it not? The Sharia wants the husband to restrict his gaze to his wife. Think about it. The Sharia wants the husband to beautify his wife and only his wife. Why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbid a woman? I mean, she's allowed to dress up. She's allowed to put on perfume. She's allowed to, all of the rest of the hair of her body is not going to be there. Why not this hair as well? So that she's looking beautiful. Why would Allah curse that when a wife does it for her husband? Even the madhabis allowed this as well. That when a wife, most of them, again, there's ikhtilaf amongst the madhab. So if you ask me, sisters, the cursing does not come if you just have dignified eyebrows. However, allow me again. I've been told not to say this. Am I your older brother or uncle? I don't know. But somebody said that you're too old to be an older brother. So ouch, I'm sorry. Ooh, ouch, that really hurts. Ouch. Khalas, call me Uncle G. Okay. Shaykh Saab. Okay. However you want to consider me, okay? I was trying to be young by saying I'm your older brother, but I guess I am too old to be your older brother. Khalas. Literally, I was told you can't be their older brother, you're 50. I'm like, okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Make me feel old, yallah. I don't feel 50, I really don't. Anyway. As your Uncle G, khalas. Sisters, allow me to be again coming from a place of concern and respect and fatherly care and love, okay? Listen to me carefully, sisters. Brothers, you too, this is for you too. Guys, birds of a feather flock together. What do I mean by this? What do I mean by this? Sisters, how you choose to dress, how you choose to look, how you choose to interact, how you choose to portray yourself on Instagram, automatically you are demarcating a niche of the brothers that are going to be interested in you to be future husbands. Being very honest here. You have to think about that. So if you choose to follow this position, for example, don't be surprised certain brothers are not interested, and that's their prerogative. It's a two-way street. They have the right, by the way. As I said, I'm not disrespecting madhabist and Salafi fiqh. I just don't think it's the most robust, but good for you guys. If you really feel that way, good for you. So sisters, understand. You have to also understand how you dress, how you wear your jilbab and hijab, or however you interact, however you portray yourself. You have to decide what type of brother I want and their religiosity and their understanding of Islam. So you have to figure that out as well in this regard. And it's your bed, you make it, as the saying goes. You lie in your own bed. You dress in a certain way. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying certain brothers are only interested in, I don't know, niqabi sisters. Okay, good for you. That's halal, no problem. I personally, by the way, I think niqab is not a problem. But it's not obligatory at all. And the culture we live in, there's no need for it at all. Personally, I know 1-to-1, I don't encourage it, but I would never discourage it. Is that clear? I don't encourage it at all. I think in the Western world, I don't think it is healthy overall because it's a bit too much. In a society where nudity is rampant, the niqab doesn't work. Niqab only works when everybody's wearing hijab and niqab, then it makes sense. But in a society where the reality is as it is, I personally am not a fan of it, but at the same time, I don't disrespect it. It is a part of our tradition. Whoever wishes to do so, good for you. And somebody should do it to remind us that it does actually exist. No problem there. But I'm just saying, there are certain brothers, I want a niqabi sister. Okay, good for you. That's your prerogative, right? So sisters, if you choose to not wear the niqab, don't be irritated or surprised when those brothers that want a niqabi are not interested in you. You see what I'm saying, right? It's live and let live. You have to decide what type of brother you want. Brothers have to decide what type of sisters they want. So I hope, inshallah ta'ala, that answers the question.